This is the Genki Shadowcast. Now, if the name Genki at all sounds familiar to you, that's because it shares its name with a couple of other products that have been really popular for Switch users, including one of the first Bluetooth adapters, as well as the portable dock that came out last year. And the Shadowcast is one of their newest accessories that's actually really interesting. Now, this isn't exclusive to the Switch like some of the other products go, but they've definitely been marketing the Switch the most heavily with it. And what this is it's an adapter that allows you to use your gaming system with a laptop as a display. Now, the way this works is actually really simple. This itself is an HDMI to USB-C adapter. It also comes with a USB-C to USB-C cable, which you then plug into whatever laptop or MacBook you want to use. From there, you install an app called Genki Arcade, and when you're running that window will act as the display for your system. So we're gonna hook this up to a couple different devices, see how it runs, maybe see if there's any differences between them, and kind of just see how well it works. Now, while this does work with a variety of different devices, to start with, I think I'm gonna go nice and simple with the Switch, because again, that is really, I think, the main console they've been like showing off for this whole product. And I'm gonna use it with a MacBook. Now, the concept here is that I should just be able to plug this little HDMI adapter into the back of the Switch, plugs into this USB-C to USB-C cable, plug that into the MacBook, and then I just run an app called Genki Arcade, have that window open, and it should just start acting as my screen. Whether or not that's what happens right now, I don't know, but let's see. Now, I do think it's worth noting really quick, we looked at some of the reviews for the Genki Arcade app, and one of the things that kind of stood out to us is that apparently some people have been experiencing issues using it on an M1 based MacBook, which this is, so we're gonna see how that goes. We have our cable, already running the app. This is my first time doing this, so let's see what happens. Boop. All right, so right now it's showing a black screen, but that's also because the Switch is not actually on. So let's go ahead. It did switch to showing this black screen, so it's doing something, or it thinks it's doing something. Oh, there we go. Okay, we do have visual. Seems fairly responsive. I think there's maybe a tiny bit of delay. Let's just launch a game. Of course, you're gonna yell at me about a system update. And then let's just go ahead and actually full screen this because we can. Okay, now part of the reason why I think the Switch has also been one of the main systems they push for this right now is because while this does allow you to use the video out of your system, there are limitations to how good of a quality you can get. In particular, you cannot do 4K 60, you can do 4K 30. I should turn down this volume a little bit. In particular, you can do 4K 30 or you can do 1080p 60. You can't do 4K 60. So that's why the Switch is a really nice choice, because the most you're ever gonna get out of that is 1080p 60. So there's not really gonna be any compromise in quality. At least that's the assumption. Okay, so definitely a little bit input lag. Not awful. I've definitely had worse experiences with input lag, like if you're using a TV that isn't really tuned for doing gameplay. However, it is more noticeable than, say, using a TV that is built for that, or even playing directly on the Switch screen. It's not the worst, though. I am also noticing, this actually might be Hades in particular, because I know Hades sometimes has just a little bit of frame drop. All right, let's try a game that has actually maybe just a little smoother in general. Do some indie games. This will actually be a really good test seeing how the input lag is, because this is a game where having responsive gameplay is really important. It's also pretty noticeable. It's always a lot easier to notice input delay, in my opinion, when you're playing kind of classic 2D style games, because, you know, there's not that much going on. It's just a matter of whether or not it detects those important inputs you need to do. So let's do a little Cyber Shadow. Oh, nope, died. But did I die because I'm bad, or did I die because of unresponsiveness? These are the important questions. Yeah, okay, so there is absolutely some minor input delay. Again, not the worst I've ever experienced, but in those games where it's very important to have very precise timing, you are gonna notice it a little bit with this device. I'm curious also how much it depends on the device you're using in question. Like I mentioned earlier, I did see some complaints about M1 MacBooks specifically having issues. So I wonder if we switch over to a PC, whether or not it'll be an even faster communication. All right, so we just set up a gaming laptop that we have. I already got the setup all plugged in. I just installed the app, ran it, and we're already getting the picture. All right, the input seems to be a little faster. I'm noticing less delay. Start software, we don't need no update. Okay, this is absolutely more responsive. Again, the amount of delay I was getting before wasn't the worst ever, but definitely in a game where timing is important is hampering. Here though, it feels a lot more natural. I'm still making mistakes in gameplay, but that's just me being bad. But it's much, much more responsive to my inputs. I'm also noticing much smoother gameplay. Before, we were getting little bits of hangups here and there, which it appears like that was an issue with using it with the M1 MacBook. So the app does actually have one mode option, which is to do either favor performance or favor resolution. Performance would make sure that you're probably getting less input delay and a smoother frame rate, while the favor resolution would favor giving you the best image quality possible. And at least on the Switch right now, swapping between them, I am noticing a difference in clarity. There's just a bit of haziness when you do favor performance, so it is dropping that resolution for sure. But yeah, really responsive. Let's see if it's just a difference of frame rate. Favor resolution. Okay, so favor resolution, I'm definitely getting a reduced frame rate because you can see kind of how choppier, well, actually you can't because this video is in 24, but I can see right now a difference in the smoothness of my character's animations. The input delay though still seems really good. I'm not noticing any kind of really bad input delay, just a little choppier on the frame rate. Well, really refresh rate, I guess, because the game's pushing the same frame rate either way. It's just how well this is communicating that over to the screen. But overall, definitely a much better experience on the PC. Now, if you are a MacBook user, I wouldn't necessarily jump to the conclusion that, oh no, on Mac it just isn't gonna work. I think it has more to do with the issue of M1 versus an Intel chip for now. Okay, so we're a couple days later, and after trying out the Shadowcast with the MacBook, I really wanted to figure out whether or not the issue was that it was running on an M1 based system, because that is a complaint a few people were saying, or if it was like a Mac versus PC thing, because again, on the Windows laptop, it ran great. So we were able to get a hold of an Intel based iMac, which I've just hooked it up to. We already have the app running. Obviously, I'm getting pictures, so that works. That's great. But let's go ahead and see how it actually feels to play on. So I still have it on favoring performance. I'm going to turn the volume down. Game's booting up. I'm going to go ahead and do Cyber Shadow again, just because I do feel like this is a really good game for getting a feel for input delay, which is what the main problem on the M1 system was. It was just, you would move a stick and that wouldn't get reflected on screen as quickly as I would have liked. Again, wasn't awful, but it was definitely better on the Windows-based laptop, so let's see. Okay, so that actually does feel snappier. Like that's happening pretty immediate to me hitting buttons, so that's a great start. Looks pretty smooth. I'm noticing every now and then there's like one little quick frame that messes up, but overall this is definitely looking and more importantly feeling much smoother than it did on the M1 systems. This is also always a great important reminder of how bad I am at playing things when I'm actively trying to talk to you guys at the same time. That's why I don't stream. This is definitely a much better experience on the Intel-based one. So I don't think it's a Mac versus PC kind of thing. I think it's just right now, this isn't working super great with M1-based Macs. Reason for that? Couldn't tell you. I just know that in my firsthand experience with the Intel-based one, I'm getting a much better experience overall. The frame rate, the refresh rate is a lot smoother. I'm not having the same degree of input delay. Much better. It is worth noting too, by the way, that right now we did check the app running, and it does say it is running based on the M1. It's not just trying to run like an Intel-based version, and that's why we're having issues. It is, in fact, a version of the app designed for M1, and we're still having those light little issues. Now, this is still fairly early on in the device's launch. I'm sure M1 wasn't something they were completely prepared for when they were first working on it, so there's always a chance that we're going to get a firmware update down the line that fixes that. But for the time being right now, I am noticing that using the Shadowcast on an M1-based system is just a little more rough around the edges. Not unplayable, not terrible, just not quite as smooth of an experience using it on a Windows-based laptop or even using it on an Intel-based MacBook or iMac. So yeah, while there is a little bit of variance in performance depending on the devices you're plugging into, I would say that overall the experience with this has been very good, and it's a great solution to what is ultimately a very specific problem. I really do feel like the Bluetooth adapter and the portable dock were maybe a slightly more common solution that people were looking for, but this does do a great job for a very specific need. If you carry a laptop around with you anyways, and you like the idea of being able to convert that into a portable display for a gaming system of your choice, that's really neat. And I think an additional one worth noting too is that if you have an iMac that you use as a work setup, well, this gives you a way to also use that as a gaming display just whenever you want to take a break. Also worth throwing out real quick that while the main primary use of this is as a display out, it does also double as a very affordable form of a capture card. Not necessarily going to get you the same quality of capture as maybe something that's more dedicated, but as far as just something that allows you to capture gameplay, you can use this by plugging a system into your laptop or MacBook and then using either the onboard capture controls that those systems have, or the app itself also has a capture solution included. All in all, it's a very specific product, but it gets the job done.